I've came across this article on Huffington Post. I'll link it in the description box down below. But check this out. Elizabeth Warren now has the largest super PAC of any of the Democratic candidates in the field. That includes people like, neoliberal centrists like Joe Biden, like Pete Buttigieg. Elizabeth Warren has a bigger super PAC than all of them. This, from the candidate who, up until a couple weeks ago, was vehemently opposed to super PACs and their corrupting influence. She was right at that time, but she had to, again, flip flop on one of the kind of core tenets of what her campaign and what herself stood for as a politician, as a person, about just how corrupt super PACs are. They're undemocratic. We often don't know where the money is coming from that's funding those groups until it's too late, until after the votes have been cast, and it's just completely, undemocratic, and just goes against, a lot of the stuff that she has claimed to be in against for many years. And just she flip-flopped because her fundraising was getting to such a point that if she didn't make this switch, then she probably would have had to drop out. This, to me, shows that we can't really trust Elizabeth Warren when she's willing to just completely flip-flop in the span of a couple weeks in order to get this super PAC money in order to stay in the race. It's just very, very disgusting and troubling. So this Persist Super PAC announced on Thursday that they're going to spend an additional $5 million on TV and digital ad buys in a lot of these Super Tuesday states. Again, Super Tuesday is coming up this March 3rd, so next week, in places like Los Angeles, Houston, Boston, etc., head of Super Tuesday. And the article talked about how Elizabeth Warren's team, her campaign, wanted this Persist Super PAC to release their donor list, but the Persist Super PAC is like, no, we don't have to do that till March 20th, multiple weeks after Super Tuesday. So they're not going to release it until they are required to, I think probably by the FEC, Federal Elections Commission, or something like that. So we're not going to know who is dumping millions of dollars into this Elizabeth Warren Super PAC until all the votes have been cast for Super Tuesday. And at that point, it's basically, I think, 60% or 2/3, something like that, of the delegates have already been allotted. So, excuse me, and I saw on Twitter that this a billionaire, this Republican billionaire who's maxed out his donations already to Elizabeth Warren might be one of the people donating to this Persist Super PAC. The only kind of confirmed donor that we have at this point is Emily's List, who donated $250K to the Persist Super PAC. And Emily's List, to my understanding, is a organization that supports candidates who are in favor of, reproductive rights, in support of Roe v. Wade, that type of thing. So, let's just look at the transformation of Elizabeth Warren in the last couple months. Now has the biggest super PAC in the Democratic field, and she's saying, well, I'm going to keep using the super PAC money until everybody else stops doing it. And again, that's a very disingenuous argument. Bernie Sanders doesn't have any of these corrupt super PACs working for him. I don't know, Elizabeth Warren seems to think the Sunrise Movement, the group of youth climate activists who are doing everything they can to fight climate change so we have an habitable planet to live on, somehow maybe she equates that with, dark, dirty money polluting our political system. Obviously that's not. She would have loved to get their endorsement as well, but Bernie Sanders is much better on climate. Just take Elizabeth Warren supporting Trump's NAFTA 2.0, which didn't have any type of language or policies to address climate change, nothing around environmental issues at all. If you're really concerned about climate change, you probably wouldn't have voted for that, Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders voted against it. Warren supported it. Sunrise Movement was correct to vote for Elizabeth Warren, or the United Nurses Union, the big nurse money that Bernie Sanders gets from nurses. It makes sense. He's huge proponent of Medicare for All. Elizabeth Warren has flip-flopped on that. So we have this just huge infusion of cash into this Persist Super PAC, making it the largest largest super PAC out of any of the Democratic candidates, now is funding Warren, and we're not going to know who or what is behind this money what until well after Super Tuesday. And this is the road that Elizabeth Warren is okay to is fine with going down, because again, she when she made this decision, I truly believe because her fundraising numbers were so low that she wasn't going to be able to stay in the race much longer unless she totally flip flopped. And then again, she's okay with super delegates overturning the will of the people. She totally flip flopped on Medicare for all, and she's just been smearing and lying about Bernie Sanders on a whole wide range of issues. So truly, I implore you, if you are Elizabeth Warren at this point, I would really ask you to reconsider why you would support Elizabeth Warren over Bernie Sanders, considering what I just said, in addition that Bernie Sanders is the national frontrunner by a huge margin. He's won the first three states. He's going to finish, I should say, first or second in South Carolina. He's going to clean up on Super Tuesday. He's going to dominate in California. He's going to win in Texas. He's more than likely, is a huge probability that he beats Elizabeth Warren in her home state of Massachusetts, for God's sakes. All she is doing at this point is splitting the progressive vote and making it more likely that it gets to a brokered convention. And even though he would have a plurality, she's hoping the super delegates would overturn the will of the people and support her. I don't think they would do that because, again, she's not going to win any states. If they were going to do that, they would prop up one of these neoliberal centrist candidates, maybe like a Joe Biden, because he might win a state or two, something like that. But yes, again, if you're a Warren supporter, please, I would seriously love to know in the comment section down below why you are supporting her at this point over Bernie Sanders, because again, there's literally no chance of her winning the nomination, and she's now bought and paid for by this corrupt super PAC, and she's okay with that. A total flip flop. I just don't trust her, and a lot of the goodwill that I think a lot of people on the left and the progressive community had towards her has really gone away in the last couple of months. And honestly, I would be totally fine with her. I think somebody actually should primary Elizabeth Warren from the left when she's up for, when that Senate seat that she holds is up for re-election, whenever that is. But we need somebody who's actually going to fight for Medicare for all, who's not going to take super PAC money, who's wants a democratic system to go through, who doesn't support super delegates overturning the will of the people, who doesn't support Trump's horrible trade budgets, who hasn't supported his military budgets in the past. The list goes on and on. Bernie Sanders is the only choice if we want to get a progressive elected to the White House. If you're a Warren supporter, I would love to hear why you would think otherwise. Those are my thoughts. Leave yours in the comment sections down below. Peace.